My first ever recording session taught me one of the most important lessons about creativity, and it all started with just a guitar and a webcam microphone. I was 16. I just bought my first computer, and I discovered this little app inside Windows XP called Sound Recorder. It wasn't meant for music. It could only record a minute at a time, but I figured out a little hack to stretch out the recording time. One night, I showed a friend, and we stayed up all night recording improvised songs with the webcam microphone. They were awful. Out-of-tune guitar, nonsense lyrics, and way too many references to my dog, Pockets. We burned the recordings to a disc, and somehow it started circulating our school. People thought it was hilarious, but I didn't care about the reception, or the quality, or if people even liked it. I was hooked on the process, because creativity isn't about talent or perfection. It's about play. When you approach creativity as an act of playfulness, you can unlock a state of flow. In this state, your decisions are made intuitively, and you place less judgment on the results beyond whether it's enjoyable or not. That's the sweet spot, because when you're not worried about if this is good or if people are gonna like it, you give yourself permission to just follow the thread. One choice folds into the next, and the music starts writing itself. I've felt this so many times, where hours disappear and I barely remember what I did, only that something alive came out of the end of it. And it only happens when I let go of the pressure to make things perfect and let the process be about play. That's exactly what was happening during that first night with that first recording session. We weren't worried about writing a good song. We weren't even thinking that way. Every silly lyric, every clumsy chord just led to the next idea. It didn't matter that the songs were awful. What mattered was that we were completely absorbed and just following the fun. That's what flow feels like. Total freedom. No filter, just one decision, tumbling into the next until something exists that didn't before. And here's the real benefit of flow. The more often you return to it, the easier it becomes to get there. It's like training your mind and your body to recognize that feeling of play. When you're in that state, it almost feels like you're tapped into something bigger than yourself, a kind of universal current. And it's that same current that inspired every song and every piece of art that came before you. In those moments, it doesn't feel like I'm forcing music into existence. It feels like I'm letting it come through me. And the more familiar I get with the process, with my tools, getting comfortable with that feeling of play, the more natural that process becomes. Beauty doesn't have to be wrestled into place. It flows through your hands, onto the canvas, into the song. And when you're in that state of play, even your weaknesses stop feeling like obstacles. They start becoming a part of the process. We all have weaknesses and limitations. Sometimes it's the skills with the tools that we use. Sometimes it's the tools themselves. When we approach creativity as play and slip into that state of flow, limitations can turn into strengths. Take guitar, for example. I've been playing for a long time, but my skills are still pretty limited. Sometimes I can't even make the chord changes that I want to make. Instead of letting that block me, I work around it. I'll record one chord at a time and stitch them together into a full performance. At first, that might sound like a compromise, but in practice, it's become a part of my workflow. It lets me stay focused on the energy of the song instead of getting stuck on technique. It keeps momentum alive, and that momentum is a strength because it means I can capture ideas when they're fresh instead of grinding them down in pursuit of perfection. That first session I had with my friend was full of limitations. We couldn't do overdubs, so we had to do everything in one take. The mic was terrible. The app barely worked, and my guitar playing was clumsy at best. But looking back, those limitations gave the recordings their character. They forced us to be spontaneous, to embrace mistakes, and to lean into the humor and personality. And here's the thing. My friend and I always look back on that night as something really magical and special. We talked about it for years afterwards. Not because the songs were good, because they weren't, but because the experience itself was unforgettable. The very things that made the songs bad were what made that night magical. That's the strength of play. It turns limitations into the engine of creativity. My friend and I look back on that night for years afterwards because it was really magical, and it didn't require any of the right tools. That's the thing. You don't need the best gear to make something that is meaningful. Back then, all we had was a guitar, a webcam mic, and a half-broken piece of software. Years later, when I started live streaming music with friends, it was the same story. I had no cameras, no fancy setup, just an iPhone and an iPad, and an audio interface to record the audio. But it was enough to capture the energy of those performances. Even now, I record these videos with just my phone. No fancy equipment, no cinematic rigs, fancy lenses, just the will to create something. Of course, better gear can make things easier, but honestly, we live in a time where even entry-level gear is powerful enough to create something that resonates. The tools matter less than the heart and playfulness that you bring to them. That's where the magic comes from. What I've realized is that people don't connect with the gear you used or how polished something is. They connect with the energy inside of it, the spirit of play that comes through. Those first goofy recordings with my friend prove that. Nobody thought they were good, but they still ended up getting passed around our school. Not because of the sound quality or the musicianship, but because they carried a kind of joy. People connected to the energy. The same thing happened years later when I hosted live streams during the pandemic. I was filming with nothing more than an iPad and my phone, but it didn't matter. What mattered was the sense of being together, sharing music when the world outside felt cut off. Connection mattered more than the production itself. And I've noticed the same thing when it comes to lyrics. When I approach writing with play, my subconscious takes over and feeds me the next word. What comes out often surprises me, and it feels alive in a way I could never force. Those raw, unfiltered lines are never perfect, but they're honest, and that honesty is what connects with people most. Connection outlasts perfection every time. My friend and I look back on that recording session from years ago, not because the songs were good, but because the bond and the memory stayed with us. That's what play does. It creates moments of connection with ourselves, with each other, and with anyone who hears the result. Perfection is exhausting. If every time you sit down to create, you're chasing the impossible goal of perfection, that's going to lead to burnout. But play makes the process sustainable. When you treat creativity as play, the act of making becomes its own reward. Even if the results are messy, even if nobody hears it, you'll still walk away energized. That's what keeps you coming back. It's the reason I've stuck with music for so many years. If I only focused on technical ability, or on whether every song turns out perfect, I would have quit a long time ago. But because I approach it with curiosity, with play, I'm always hungry to return. And the funny thing is, consistency matters more than any one song. Because the more often you play, the more chances you give yourself to stumble upon something magical. Sustainability isn't about perfection or discipline. It's about joy. And joy is what keeps the creative fire alive. My first ever recording session wasn't special because of the music we made. The songs were clumsy, out of tune, full of nonsense lyrics and inside jokes about my dog. But it was unforgettable because it showed me that creativity isn't about talent or perfection. It's about play. Play unlocks flow. Play turns limitations into strengths. Play creates connection where perfection never could. And most importantly, play makes creativity sustainable. Because at the end of the day, it's not the results I'm chasing when I sit down to make something. It's the process itself. It's falling in love with the flow state again and again. Moving from one decision to the next, following the trail of thoughts until the universe blesses me with something beautiful. And maybe that's because creativity itself is the fundamental urge of reality. It's the force that keeps the universe unfolding moment by moment. Every star, every tree, every life, all of it is creation in motion. When we tap into that same current, we align ourselves with the rhythm of the universe itself. That's the gift of creativity, and it's available to everyone. You don't need perfect gear. You don't need flawless skill. You just need to start playing, because that's where the magic lives. Thanks for joining me. If you like this video, hit the like button. If you'd like to see more content like this, or if you want to see my music production process, hit the subscribe button. If you'd like to get notifications, hit the bell. Thanks for joining me. I'll see you later.